Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us, families, caregivers, friends of the university. Um, my name is Erica Caloiero. I'm the Vice Provost for Student Affairs here at the University of Vermont. And I'm here this evening with our Chief Safety and Compliance Officer, Mike Schirling, who will introduce himself in some depth shortly. Mike has a really impressive background in all of the topics that we're here this evening to cover and then some. Our purpose this evening, slide please, is to reorient and ground us all in a conversation that's important to all members of our community at all times and at the beginning of the year and following events locally that remind us of our shared commitment to community safety. We're here to talk about opportunities and support around student and community safety. I want to underscore that we do this work with an eye on building a strong, healthy community where everybody belongs. Our campus work really emphasizes shared respect and commitment to community. And Mike is also going to speak about some of the really in-depth, I would say, often behind the scenes work that we then move forward into the public awareness for students, faculty, and staff to engage with. And again, here a reminder that physical, emotional, and social well-being are all integral to the health and safety of our community. Slide, please. I want to underscore also this evening that because safety is a community effort, it's useful to mention just a few. This is not an exhaustive list that you see here on the slide, but there are many offices and individuals, teams and communities on campus who formally and constantly engage in the work of creating a healthy and safe community. The Division of Safety and Compliance, which Mike Schirling heads, is a very, key core central and acts as a direct agent of the institution's efforts. The Division of Student Affairs has a number of departments where safety, compliance, health-related efforts also roll out. And it's incredibly important to mention that our identity centers, through the work that they do to create community and shared awareness, our Student Financial Services group, through their awareness of student needs and their ability to bring to bear resources that can help in times of crisis and need. The Office of International Education as a locus of communication and community for our international students. The Office of Equal Opportunity, where all manner of concerns are shared, triaged, investigated, and resolved. Our coaches, our club organization and academic advisors, et cetera, et cetera. We have a true fabric of community commitment to safety, but it does take each of us and all of us aware of our roles and doing our part. So with that said, Mike, I want to turn to you, invite you to introduce yourself and share with us some of the really essential pieces to how your division designs and delivers, partners with our campus toward the end of a safe community.
Thanks, Erica, and thank you all for joining us. A great turnout this evening. I'm sorry it's the topic has to be safety, but we're certainly really happy to have you spend a little bit of time with us on this topic. As Erica said, my name is Mike Schirling. I have the honor of serving as the Chief Safety and Compliance Officer. My background actually isn't in higher ed. I've been here for just over 2 years. I came from the state where I served as the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. I had some other state roles before that, and finished a 26-year career with the Burlington Police Department. Prior to that, the last 8 years or so as the Chief of Police. So I have a fairly robust background, not only in public safety, but specifically in Burlington as a lifelong Burlington resident and an alum of the university, both for undergrad and graduate school. So a lot of connection here. Both of my kids went to UVM. My mother went to UVM. So been a long-standing multi-generational connection. The division that I'm fortunate to be part of has a variety of components. They're listed here on the screen: police services, emergency management, and a variety of others, including some technology offices that have responsibility for safety technology. I should say from the outset here, my plan is just to go through a few slides, give you a general overview of many of our programs and initiatives. Almost all of this is available at all times for you to take a look at our website. And Kevin has posted the Division of Safety and Compliance homepage there. All the tips and tools, the technologies, the teams. That's the way we look at things in these three general areas of teams, tools, and technology and training. Those are the kinds of things we want to deliver to your student and to the rest of the campus to give them the tools to stay safe on any given day. So the plan is to just go through the slides rather quickly because the information is available, and then spend as much time as possible answering the questions that you have and speaking to the things that are top of mind for you. So we'll go to the next slide. Among the most important things is our CatSafe app. It has all the information that is also cross-posted to the website, available at a student, at a faculty or staff member's fingertips, or you as a visitor. If you come to campus, or if you just want to download the app now, you can see all the details and all the functionality of the CatSafe app right from your home. I'll go through a couple of the key features there in a moment. But in addition to CatSafe being the core piece of safety technology, we have an array of almost 500 security cameras on campus. We maintain a Cat Alert mass notification system, which can send alerts to phone call, text message, and email all simultaneously. Many of you may have actually received one within the last hour, which is fairly unusual, but the health department has issued a high alert for Eastern equine encephalitis, unfortunately, and we sent an alert to all of our students, faculty, and staff, and parents who received those alerts about that and how to stay safe just a short time ago. Our Cat eCare program are stations that have emergency response tools, including an automatic external defibrillator, stop the bleed kit, and a naloxone or Narcan overdose reversal kit in them. There are about to be 100 of those we're going to unveil during our safety week, which is also available details on our website, which is the week of September 16th. We're going to unveil the 100th Cat eCare station on campus. Our threat recognition and assessment toolkit is new in the last 18 months. It's a landing page for anyone involved in the university community to get information about what kinds of things they should report of concern that relate to people. It doesn't always have to be a threat, could be concern for someone's well-being. And as Erica indicated, there's such a large array of resources available on campus that whether it's a lower level concern or it's something that does rise to the level of an issue that needs to be assessed by our threat recognition team, all the details about how to recognize those things and report them are available there in the toolkit. And then the final piece to highlight is our unified reporting portal, uvm.edu/report. One of the things I noted when I arrived on campus was there's so many things that can be reported and so many resources available. We tried to streamline that and make it much easier for students to navigate by simply going to a single portal and seeing an easy way to report things that are of concern. So I see Kevin has posted the details about Safety Week, and I'll also take this opportunity to just share with you that we were fortunate to be the recipients of a very large Homeland Security grant last year, which goes directly to trying to enhance your student safety. We're in the midst of building an array of educational assets that can be deployed not only on our campus, but on campuses and in workplaces around Vermont to train people how to recognize things of concern, threats, how to report them. And we'll be hosting a Healthy Workplaces Symposium as a result of that grant on September 16th for not only the campus, but for a host of partners around the state. And we're posting some information about that in the chat as well. So we'll go to the next slide. Safety and crime prevention is top of mind given the flurry of activity, certainly in the last week or so here in the Burlington area. The website's posted there. We've got a variety of safety and security tips that are posted on that site. I won't go through them in detail because they're all available to you at your fingertips. They're also available on the CatSafe app, as I mentioned. Safety Week, the 16th through the 20th. And then the question we get, not just today, but over the last year or so, a prevalent question is, well, is Burlington safe? So I wrote a piece in the spring of last year, and we updated it just on August 1st. And right on our homepage, the very top sort of article that you'll see is that piece, which talks about the evolution of safety concerns in the city and provides a variety of tips for keeping students in particular safe as they're navigating Burlington. The bottom line there is we were fortunate in Burlington to really be almost a panacea of safety for a long time. Unfortunately, we're suffering from some of the same concerns and challenges that other small and mid-sized and large cities are suffering from around the country, and we're now at a point where crime is more of an issue than it has been historically. It is still a safe place, but as I said in an interview yesterday, that level of vigilance that we've preached for 30 years that you have to have sort of in the background, at this point, we're saying that level of vigilance around safety is important, and it really should be more in the foreground than in the background. That's the main difference in terms of the psychological approach to safety that we're impressing upon our students and really everyone in the community at this particular point in time. Again, more detail in that is Burlington safe piece that is not particularly long, so easy to get through. Next slide. Here's the CatSafe app. It's powered by an underlying application called LiveSafe. Embedded there is a virtual blue light system where students or really anyone can press a button, contact police services, call 911, and even more robust are the messaging capabilities. So we find students in particular like to send messages versus do phone calls, and they can open up an interactive chat session with our emergency dispatchers at the police department. They can send video, send images to them, and report things directly without having to make a phone call and without having to even alert someone that they're near, that they may be reporting for something suspicious, that they're making the report. It also has a Safe Walk peer-to-peer virtual escort system where they can choose peers, including you, to walk along virtually with them if they're transiting the city or transiting the campus and they happen to be alone, or it's dusk or it's after dark and they want an extra layer of safety. There's additional information about CatSafe and its functions, again, on the website, and everyone's able to download and encouraged to download and take a look at it and see the types of things that it can do for you. Next slide. Already mentioned everything here. The campus security cameras are not monitored 24 hours a day because there's almost 500 of them, but in areas where we get reports of suspicious activity or there's a reason to monitor, we put those cameras up in the police dispatch center, and they're at least passively monitored on an as-needed basis. Next slide. Cat Alert, we mentioned, again, it goes out over multiple things. I did skip over the fact that it goes to campus displays all over the campus, and that number of displays actually will be increasing as there are more displays added over the course of this year. Next slide. Cat eCare we've been through. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Threat recognition and assessment, we mentioned the web page is there and also posted in the chat. And we can go to the next slide. Unified reporting. I did it all on the intro slide to make this flow faster. And we can go to the next slide. These are the personal safety keys. There's more details, again, on that safety webpage available through our homepage. But being alert, being aware, displaying confidence, but doing so in a way that avoids confrontation. One of the key things we tell people is to trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right, and it's okay to extricate yourself from that scenario. And then, of course, knowing how to call for help swiftly is quite important. And not only through the CatSafe app, which you can push a button and call 911 or call police services, but there's a buttonology to all phones. And in the safety keys that are written in more depth, we give links to how to use those buttons on an iPhone or an Android, so you can call 911 without having to take your hands off the button or even dial the phone. And we can go on to the next slide. So I touched on this briefly. We've got a couple of questions to sort of seed the well here, things that we hear often. What is the overall view of crime in the Burlington area? Historically, Burlington has had a higher than average for its population property crime rate, and almost in exchange for a lower than average violent crime rate. So the difference being property crime is something stolen from your yard, from your car, from your house when you're not home. Violent crime is a robbery. You're at the ATM machine and someone tries to steal your money. Someone runs past you and grabs a bag or a purse. And then, of course, assaults and more substantial crimes against persons are all in that violent crime realm. There's also always been an inverse relationship between those two things. Of late, we are still better than average in violent crime. We're still a little above average in property crime, and there's been a variety of evolutions there. There's more car theft, for example. Part of that is driven by some challenges with technology with a couple of particular car manufacturers. Some of it is driven by people having a habit of leaving their keys in their cars, and then other times it's more traditional car theft where people are breaking into a house, stealing the keys. Those kinds of things. So there's been an uptick in that. Burglary has been largely flat, but still college students have always been, in the 35 years I've been in public safety, have been a target for theft. People looking to steal things know that they have valuable electronics and they know where they live in the city. There are college neighborhoods, for lack of a better description. So we've consistently tried to get the word out in those neighborhoods, and we have an off-campus team that gives our students off-campus welcome bags and information about how to make sure their things aren't stolen, their car doesn't get broken into, things of that nature. And then on the violent crime side, there have been these flurries of activity over the last couple of years. There was one about 2 years ago. We've just had one in the last week or so. It is not a sustained level of violent crime and is still not high risk that a random person is going to be assaulted or injured, but there is a risk. There always is in any city, and it's slightly elevated compared to historical norms during those flurries of activity, the one I mentioned a couple of years ago and the one that's happening now. So we increase our messaging and we try to get more tools, more information into the hands of people that need it when those circumstances are occurring. We can go to the next slide. And in and around campus, one of the big questions we get is, what are we doing to assist and contribute to the safety of areas around the campus? So we are fortunate. We have a fully functional police department like any other department in Vermont. I've been fortunate to supervise the Burlington Police, the state police, and now UVM. Our officers are outstanding. It's a decent sized police department at roughly 30, and they do a great job balancing the needs of the campus, the service needs with the enforcement needs when they're required. They respond into Burlington to provide mutual aid and to provide assistance to the Burlington Police Department on a fairly regular basis, almost daily. Additionally, since I've been here, we've done extra patrols into neighborhoods where students frequent, whether that's in the downtown in the evening or student neighborhoods just in general, to add some presence. Still, the primary responsibility for investigations and responding to those neighborhoods rests with the Burlington Police Department, but we're adding a layer of presence and another set of eyes and ears to those neighborhoods to the greatest extent we can, in between other calls and services that they have to provide on campus. Additionally, we don't widely publicize this, but in the event a student needs assistance off campus, emergent or otherwise, and they can't get services from any other place, Burlington is busy, they can call our police department and they will respond off campus and provide that assistance as long as we have someone available. If they're encumbered with a response, it might take a little while. That is not something that happens particularly often, But it does happen a couple of times a semester where our officers or our service officers will respond off campus, pick somebody up, move them because they're feeling like they're in danger or something feels amiss, or they just need assistance and they can't get it from anyone else. I think that's the two of the scripted questions, and as promised, we're on to your questions, which is where we want to spend the bulk of our time.
Great.
For
Thank you
the
so
remainder.
much, Mike. So I am looking at some great questions that have come in, and Mike, I hope you have a glass of water. I've got a lot of questions here, and you're gonna have to do some fast talking to get through what looks like right now about 24 questions that we have fielded. The first, well, I'm going to start with some that are kind of logistical. Can you remind our audience, some people signed on a little after we started, can you remind our audience how to get email alerts or CAT alerts?
Yes, email and CAT alerts come based on what your student has registered for in the CAT alert system. So you have to have a UVM net ID in order to go in and get that information. I'll ask Kevin to see if he can find a link to that general information if it's available. But the bottom line is ask your student to sign you up for those alerts if they haven't already done so. They can sign your phone number up and your email address. Important to note that if you're in a different time zone, we may wake you up inadvertently with information about something that's happening near us that doesn't necessarily apply or isn't really super emergent. So just be aware that we may disrupt you.
That's right. We have, Mike, a number of questions related to the relationship between UVM and the UVM police and Burlington and the Burlington police. And so what I'm going to do is kind of roll a number of those questions together and essentially ask you again to describe the relationship between campus and campus safety and Burlington safety related efforts.
It's a great question. First responders in general, in Vermont and in particular in Chittenden County, all work together very closely. Vermont is a very small state, as you're aware, we're the size of most mid-sized cities. And there is a cooperation that occurs. Emergency medical services, fire safety, and policing all work together on a day-to-day basis on cases, on emergency responses, backing each other up, et cetera. So UVM is part of that fabric. We respond into Winooski, South Burlington, Burlington, the adjacent communities. Those officers respond to assist us when necessary. We drill with them. We do exercises with them. We did a large exercise facilitated by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in April of last year. And all of it, relative to the law enforcement component, the security component, they all have concurrent jurisdiction. So in some states, police officers have jurisdiction only in the city or the county where they're sworn. In Vermont, it is statewide concurrent jurisdiction. So every officer can do everything. That's the general overview, and I can answer more specific questions if there are any. I should add, we're in constant contact with the Burlington Police Department, with the Vermont State Police. I had coffee with the colonel, the director of the state police this morning, and with the Vermont Intelligence Center, which is a post 9/11. Every state has at least one. Many have several intelligence and information sharing assets, so that we're up to speed on what's going on a national level, and we share information back about what we're seeing on campuses, so that they are aware as well.
Mike, speaking of things that are relevant nationally, we have a question related to among the concerns nationally and specifically gangs. Are we seeing more of this activity in Burlington? And if so, what are local police doing about it?
It's a great question. It's a very complicated question. Or gangs are essentially organized crime, right? They just happen to have a youthful element to them. There have been flashes over the last 30 years of organized crime in that youth element coming to Burlington and trying to set up shop. They have often been quashed because they stand out. It's a small community. It's hard to operate that way. Um, there is certainly an organized crime element in the drug trade in general. The drug trade in Vermont is driven by a lot of different places, the Midwest, Chicago, Detroit, suburbs in Connecticut, Massachusetts. So it's that coupled with some homegrown folks is really driving, in particular, the opiate epidemic that's been in play here now for more than 15 years. And not just Vermont, but really all over the nation. And more pointedly, you'll note that for those of you watching the news here, the Burlington Police Department issued a press release with a series of events where they're trying to identify young people engaged in aggressive and sometimes violent altercations with folks. There's no indication at this point that those youth are affiliated with any organized crime. That's more of an affinity group of people who is acting out in that particular way. And we do see that from time to time. Most cities have that kind of a challenge as well. Again, they tend to be flashes where it occurs for a while. The folks are identified, there's charges brought to bear, and the behavior tends to subside. But we're at the early stages of one of those confluences of events, and those folks, to my knowledge, as of today, haven't been identified yet. That's an active investigation.
Great, thank you. A couple of
actually, I'm gonna sorry, Erica.
Nope.
I should add that our top of mind concern relative to that is that those folks who are out seeking conflict will either intentionally or inadvertently run into our students. And because our students are young, they may not walk away. So we're trying to push the messaging that disengage, don't engage with folks that are being aggressive with you. You don't know who they are, you don't know what they're carrying. So if there's one ask I have of you as you talk with your students is to relay that, have them relay that to their friends, that now is not the time to be going toe to toe with anybody. It really never is, but there's a specific enhanced concern right now. So we really want to push that message to the greatest extent possible.
I think underscoring intelligent bystander intervention is a really, yeah, thank you for underscoring that, Mike. And, and really, families and caregivers and friends, that is a really important piece to underscore. We want students to speak up and help create and maintain a safe community. They need to do so in ways that first and foremost prioritize their own safety. Mike, can you talk to that end about, students are, and there are a couple of questions, so I'm going to attempt to synthesize a few here into one. Students are occasionally seeing things that are unfamiliar and that make them deeply uncomfortable. For example, a student may see drug use off campus. What should students do when they see or encounter things that feel unsafe or make them uncomfortable?
Great question. If they see or encounter something that makes them feel unsafe or uncomfortable, the number one thing is to walk away. If it looks like someone is in need of emergency assistance, they certainly call 911 or call our police department, or if they're more comfortable messaging our police department, they can send that message and we'll relay that. If they're off campus, we'll relay that to the agency that's responsible. But the most important thing is for them to stay safe. And whether it's reporting the thing that's making them uncomfortable, or if they see something that is suspicious and looks out of place, doesn't necessarily make them uncomfortable, we encourage them to report that also. It's been decades now that the term community policing has been bantered around, and regardless of your view of what that means, at its core, when you have, in our case, a community of 18,000 of 12,000 plus undergraduates and graduate students and faculty and staff, all watching out for each other, all reporting the things that look like they're anomalies. that's what creates community safety, not the 30 police officers we have, or the 60 whatever that Burlington has, or the 300 that the state police have.
Thank you very much. Let's see, we've got a couple of questions that are, I think, really nicely linked. What is the process for Burlington Police to communicate with UVM police when there's a serious safety incident, like the shooting this weekend that occurred off campus in the community? And related to that, how does UVM decide whether an incident poses a risk to students and warrants a timely CAT alert?
Great question. So in terms of communication with UVM police, it depends. If UVM police are responding, then, or they're asked for mutual aid, they're going to know immediately. There are times we don't find out about a violent crime that's happened until a press release is issued. If there's an intersection or the potential for an intersection with the campus, Burlington's dispatchers will call our dispatchers immediately. So if there is an ongoing concern that someone that poses a danger is making their way to campus, has an intersection with campus, they're going to know that. Those kinds of things are going to trigger a CAT alert. A violent crime in general that occurs off campus, whether that's in Burlington, South Burlington, Winooski, Colchester, Essex, is not by itself going to create a CAT alert. Burlington does have an alert system. Actually, they're now, I believe, now using VT alert. So one of the things we ask our students and affiliates to do is sign up for VT alerts. You can actually, anyone can do that. You can sign up for those as well. You can pick the types you want and the communities you'd like to get alerts from in Vermont. So if you're interested in what's happening in Burlington, they'll send emergency alerts over that alerting system. That includes weather. We don't typically send weather alerts anymore. Everyone's got weather on their phone. It's just not something that is, unless there's a significant weather anomaly, we're not going to just tell people about inbound thunderstorms and adverse general weather anymore. It's just part of the normal flow of information. So I feel like I may have left out a piece of that question, but.
No, I think you did a good job. Thank you. Can you speak to, there are a couple questions, and I really appreciate these questions about how parents can become involved. Can you give ideas, Mike, for ways in which parents, family members, caregivers can communicate with either UVM or the city of Burlington to advocate for or to state their awareness of and their care about safety in the Burlington community?
Great question. I talk to parents pretty much every day. We get emails, and I, rather than respond by email, I tend to call people back and spend some time talking with them about safety. In the Is Burlington Safe piece, we actually we take the unusual step. It's not common for the university to say, you should call elected officials and tell them how you feel about things. It's just not usually our place. But these are, safety in particular is an area of public policy that, frankly, Vermont and Burlington are struggling with, and policymakers need to hear from people who are interested. So we have taken the unusual step of saying to concerned parents in particular, the mayor needs to hear this, the city council needs to hear this, and the legislators from Chittenden County who are making statewide policy that intersects this also need to hear your concerns, whether that's concerns that are coming from your student or their friends, or things you're seeing when you're here in Burlington. There are some hard decisions that have to be made, and they really need to hear all viewpoints on what people are feeling about safety in the city and in the state.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and this is something we talk about with students as well, that as a member of a community, your voice matters. And so the kinds of things that you experience, that you care about, that make you nervous, that you want, all of these pieces are really important to be sharing. Mike, this is a pretty specific question. It's shown up several ways in different questions. But essentially the question is this: can you ask for someone to walk with you from different points on campus if you feel unsafe doing so?
We don't have a cadre of people that's standing by to walk with you. If there's another student around, student to student, you could certainly ask. But CatSafe is designed to enable that virtual walk along. So your student can pick any one of their friends to connect with, any family member, really anyone in the world that has internet access, and you can follow along with them as they walk. You can see a trail of breadcrumbs. It'll even give you a timer for their estimated time of arrival if you disconnect for some reason and they haven't reconnected. So that's the technological piece of the walk along.
I'll
And
just
as I indicated before, if someone really has a sense that something is amiss, they're being followed, call police services. They will come, and even if they don't see anyone, if they're not doing anything else, they'll get you a ride to where you need to go. They're not going to leave someone out there. That's one of the benefits of being on campus. One of the differences between municipal and state policing that don't have the resources to be able to do that.
Yes, I'll just put a plug in for the CatSafe app for that feature that allows you to share your location. I do that every once in a while, just so that the person I'm walking to meet knows where I am. It might be 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a sunny day, and it just lets someone know if I've stopped to have a conversation on the sidewalk. And of course, the real intent is of course to keep folks safe and feeling like they've got someone with them, someone watching their progress as they move from point A to point B. And you can use it anywhere in the world, can't you?
You can.
Um,
Yeah, those features in the CatSafe app work everywhere. You don't have to be on campus to do those safe walks.
okay. Mike, could you speak to recommendations you would offer to students or families when they arrive late in the evening via train, via bus, even at the airport, and they need to come to campus? What advice do you give?
A couple of different things. Sometimes transportation is limited because of our size. Cab companies don't really exist for the most part, and although at the airport they're a little more prevalent. And rideshare is sort of hit or miss. So a couple things. If you can arrange a ride ahead of time, that's the most stable way of getting ground transportation. During times when we have lots of students moving, so at breaks, we've actually added private security to the bus station in particular. The airport is already policed by the Burlington Police Department. There's a police officer there 24 hours a day. And when it's open, there's transportation security and other security assets there as well. So less of an issue there. But the bus station's in the middle of downtown. Just this last year, we started adding private security there during times when our students are departing. So there's a large confluence of students that arrive, and oftentimes you have to be at the bus stop at fairly unusual hours, like 4:30 in the morning. So we anticipate having that same service available this year.
So that's related to travel. Here's a specific question that's on the minds of a few people here this evening. Should UVM students stay indoors or stay off of Church Street or stay? There's a couple of ways that this is framed, but essentially, is there a certain time of night that you think people should not be out and about?
I actually said this in an interview, and it's in the Is Burlington Safe piece as well. There's an age-old adage that nothing good happens after midnight. That's a true story. I've worked after midnight for a long time, and there are very few things that are good that happen after midnight. Is probably the most accurate statement. We never really used to have to give that advice, but at this point, once the dinner crowd is done downtown, which could be 10, could be 11, could be midnight if it's a weekend, the tenor, the tone and tenor of the downtown changes. It takes on a different complexion. It always has, but that complexion is a little a little more challenging now, particularly with the youth that are aggressive youth that are in play at the moment, and some of the things that have happened in the last few days. So it's unfortunate we have to give that advice, but if it were my kids, they're now out of college, but that's what I would be telling them.
Thank you. Could you speak to police staffing at all, if that's something that you're aware of in the city of Burlington, and then speak to our campus police staffing? Do we have what we need?
Well, you never have what you need, because there's always something else you could do. We could always add, there's always interesting things we'd like to do if we had unlimited staff and unlimited resources, but that's never the case in any organization. UVM police is reasonably well staffed. We have a few vacancies, but you know, the patrol division's in great shape. We have good detectives, and our teams are solid. We'd love to hire some more. So if you know of anybody, certainly send them to Chief Billadu and that team. Burlington is hovering around 60, 62 officers. As a point of reference, when I retired in 2015, we had 105. And there were studies previous to that that said the right number was 120. I can tell you it is very difficult to police the city with 62.
Okay. Are there specific areas of the city that students should stay away from?
Another item that's in the Is Burlington Safe? This used to be, for those of you who are first responders, this was the common question I get as chief from families of first responders. The firefighter, police officer, whoever would call, police chief would call and say, my son or daughter's going to UVM. They're going in their junior year. They're moving off campus. What neighborhood should they avoid? There aren't any. That hasn't really changed. There's no bad neighborhoods in Burlington. There are times after midnight, the tone and tenor changes. So you got to just be mindful and extra vigilant if you're out, if you work past those hours, et cetera. You know, if you drive around the neighborhoods, you'll see a few houses where it's clear that there's more disorder sort of centered around a particular house than a neighborhood, but they're immediately evident. So no bad neighborhoods, occasionally a bad neighbor, but you'll be able to figure that out by looking at it.
Great. Mike, we have a couple of questions related to campus disruptions. What is the plan for UVM in the event of campus disruptions this year? There are also some questions related to sort of early protests that we might see or anticipate. So I'll roll those questions together and ask you to address both in your answer.
Sure. We had, knock on wood, a relative to other campuses, a relatively good experience in the spring. It was not perfect, but our students, while they were protesting, got sideways of a few things, but generally tried to be respectful of not being disruptive of classes, of activities happening in the library, et cetera. That's not to minimize the impact to other students of some of the protests that happened, but relative to general disruption, we did not have as bad an experience as other campuses might have. We spent a lot of time this summer updating, tweaking, modernizing some of the approaches. We were lucky that a lot of the core policies, procedures, ways to approach dealing with protest and demonstration activity were already in place. So it was just doing some polishing of things that was necessary. So we did a lot of work on that. We updated some policies. We created actually an emergency response annex for campus disruption. It is, for those of you who might be interested in reading it, I will say it is not a public document for obvious reasons. It contains safety and security planning, but it is important for folks to know that it exists, and there is a written. No emergency plan ever has every contingency, and you're never following it line by line. It's not a checklist, but we have a good solid foundation in that document. And we have done drills and exercises over the course of the summer as well to prepare for potential disruption. Our concerns relative to disruption are obviously the disruption of the campus operations is the first thing. Things that make other students feel uncomfortable. They're not disruptions. They may not necessarily be policy violations, but trying to work with students who are demonstrating or protesting so that they're aware of the potential adverse impacts to other cross sections of the campus. It's kind of a nuanced area where Erica and her team and the provost are outstanding at trying to get students together to understand the impacts of them using their voices that might be unanticipated. And then the primary things that we spend a lot of time trying to plan for and ensure don't happen are problematic counter protests, people posing a risk to protesters or demonstrators or people that are just out, exercising their First Amendment rights. Might not even be something that rises to the level of protest or demonstration. We have to worry about all sides of that. So we've got a lot of assets in place, a lot of training, all designed to try to keep things as safe as possible with the underlying goal of, the primary underlying goal of ensuring that students that want to have their voice heard can do that in a lawful, safe way that conforms with our policies. And it's a delicate balancing act that there's a lot of variables, and we're doing our best to try to keep those things balanced. We had a demonstration today that went off quite well. There was a demonstration at Convocation that was disruptive, and we're taking some base student conduct action as a result of that to let folks know that that's not something we're going to be excited to see over the course of the semester, and there are consequences.
And just to thank you for that, Mike. I just want to add also that it's not the case that we broadcast what you were just talking about. So when a student is referred to a conduct process, that is not something that the community is generally aware of. It's not something that we communicate. We do actually have a responsibility to work with students confidentially as they are referred into and work through the conduct process. It can occasionally be the case that that not knowing about that can create an impression that we're not taking action. And I want our audience this evening to know that we do take action when we receive reports that indicate a policy has been violated or there is some other problem that we need to address. I think that's really important for our students and our families to be aware of. Mike, I just want to say there are a number of compliments that people are offering in the Q&A, and so I just want to make you aware of that and thank the folks who are expressing their appreciation for Mike, for our campus police, for the efforts the institution makes to be in relationship with the city of Burlington. It really does take everybody, and so to those who recognize the effort and the work that is ongoing and that is dynamic and responsive and anticipatory, thank you to our Catamount families for your awareness. Back to questions. Is UVM planning to hire more police?
Well, the first order of business is we need to get to full staffing, which is it's a common question for police departments. The day I retired, we were fully staffed, just strangely, but the entire time I was chief before that, we weren't. So it would have been great to get past 105, but the operational reality is hiring police officers is pretty tough these days. So that's a really long way of saying I'll be happy if we can just get to full strength and stay there before we start talking about whether we need more.
Yes. What is the approximate time of campus police on campus to get to an emergency call?
3 minutes, probably less, but about 3 minutes.
CatSafe app question. Do families put in their child's email or their own email when signing up? This might be but we have folks behind the scenes, Kevin in particular, who's answering questions. And so, Mike, if you don't know the answer to this, Kevin, if you could put it in the chat.
I don't know the limit, but they're allowed to put in multiple email addresses, multiple phone numbers. So the students are automatically subscribed to CatSafe. We sweep their information out of the Banner registration system, and so they get it automatically. They'll have to add parents' phone numbers or email addresses if you want to receive the Cat alerts.
Great. Mike, could you share with our audience this evening how UVM protects students who are living off campus? What advice, support services, response, et cetera? How are we supporting our off-campus students?
So again, it's the overarching plan is teams, tools, and technology and training. So the teams, there's police services, as I mentioned, will go through those neighborhoods, not as primary responsibility, but they'll sweep through there from time to time. There's an off-campus team led by a woman named Gail Champnoise. They're in constant contact with off-campus students. They constantly provide safety tips. So we'll create the safety tips. They'll distribute those. They distribute welcome bags with that information, magnets with emergency phone numbers, all the bike locks from time to time, all those kinds of things. And then it's the training component is something our training coordinator Kevin's been working diligently on for more than 18 months. Safety Week is one of those is one of the highlights where whether you're on campus or off campus, we offer an array of training during that week and then on an ongoing basis as well, so they can all avail themselves of that. And pretty soon there'll be more online types of training available to them as well.
Great. Here's one about a different type of safety, West Nile, and I'll add to that Triple E. Can you speak to what we are doing? Are we spraying? How are we planning to keep our community safe?
That's a great question. The health department just issued an alert for Burlington. For those of you who may not have been on early on in the call, there is an alert for Eastern equine encephalitis that was issued today. It's the first one in Vermont, I think, ever. And the safety tips that they're putting forth are consider not being outside between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., wear long clothing, wear an approved insect repellent, and in terms of spraying, it's under consideration. The mayor's office issued a press release a couple of hours ago, and part of that indicated that if they're going to spray, there'll be advanced notice to the community before that happens.
Great. Let's see. Are there personal safety or self-defense classes available to students?
Also a great question. Just talking to Kevin about this a couple of days ago. The university, through our sexual violence prevention coordinator, Elliot Ruggles, is actively working on deploying a new self-defense course or methodology. It was the rape regression defense curriculum that was offered up until just before I arrived, and they're working on deploying a new one. While we stop short of a particular recommendation, in lieu of a self-defense course, what I recommend to my children is pepper spray. It is the safest and most effective self-defense mechanism, in my opinion. I hear people talk about, I'm going to carry a firearm, or I'm going to carry a knife, and I'm going to defend myself. Those things require a lot of complexity to make decisions, and someone could get seriously hurt, and the person could be disarmed and get seriously hurt themselves. Pepper spray, there's almost no risk. It's almost always going to work. It's going to prevent people from being able to see or breathe for a period of time, in which case they can't attack you. If it's used against you, it's uncomfortable for 45 minutes. It's quite annoying for about 45 minutes. but also no one's going to attack you because you're going to be a mess. So they're not going to want any part of being around you, even if you inadvertently turn it backwards and spray yourself. So again, not an official university recommendation, but there is an exception in our weapons policy. No weapons allowed on campus of any kind. Pepper spray is an exception.
And thank you for saying that. There are a couple questions that have come in around pepper spray, and it sounds like it's allowed on some campuses, not on others. It sounds like there may be some places where it isn't legal. So be sure to consult our website and make sure that what you're purchasing, conforms to our campus policies. But Mike, thank you for that recommendation.
And if you're traveling with it, just be mindful, like don't try to travel through Canada if you're coming across from Michigan into Vermont, because you'll be in trouble.
That's right. Be mindful, be mindful. Can you speak to break-ins? How can folks prevent break-ins in off-campus housing?
Great question. First thing is lock the doors and keep track of the keys. It's not uncommon for college students to lose their keys, and by the third week of the semester, the doors open and everybody's in. But that includes the bad guys. They know where the college students live. They know that there's things in there of interest to them, not the students themselves, but their stuff. So break-ins, particularly around holiday times, they also know when the breaks are. So don't leave behind valuables. Don't leave the computer on the kitchen table. Don't leave medications if you're going to need them. Either bring them with you or find very creative places to hide them so they can't be found. Close and lock first floor windows. If there's first floor air conditioners, get some basic screws so that the air conditioner can't be pushed out or the sash can't be pushed up. It's really just about preventing the ability for people to crawl into both the first floor, and I actually just heard of a break-in where the entry was through a basement window. So basement windows, talk to the landlord, of course, before you start screwing things to casements and stuff so you don't get in trouble. But there's a variety of different ways to secure basement windows, and ways to do it in a way, both first floor windows and basement windows, in a way that in the event of a fire or an emergency, you can still get out. So just be mindful not to lock yourself in so you can't get out if you have to.
We've got time for one more question. Can you, so Kevin is off screen, everyone, but I'm just gonna verbally, Kevin, would you be able to put a link to the off-campus team that Mike referred to, the Oscar group that that distributes campus safety information, as well as to any other groups that work with students, such as yourself, Kevin, to increase awareness about campus safety, please. Sorry. Oh, I just lost the question that I was going to ask you as the last question. Let me scroll. My apologies. It's related to cameras. Okay, I can't find the question, but essentially the question is, can you restate? I know you were speaking about cameras earlier, but again, I think we've had some folks join after you were speaking about that. Can you talk about cameras on campus and how they are used?
Sure. We have almost 500 security cameras. What I didn't say earlier is they're all in public areas. There's no cameras watching individual student doorways and things of that nature. They are largely used in response to reports. So we get a report of something happening, the police dispatcher can put up the camera or cameras around that area. We can use them for investigative reasons. And if we get reports of suspicious activity in a particular area or something's been going on, we can pull those cameras up and leave them statically open in the police dispatch center. So they're, I call it passively being monitored, because they're doing multiple things. They're not just staring at a screen, but at least they're up. One common area is we have a couple of bike storage facilities, and from time to time people like to go shopping in them even though they don't have any money. And we'll put up the bike storage cameras, and at 2 a.m. we'll see somebody wandering through there, and we'll send an officer to find out why. Sometimes it's a student, but sometimes it's not.
Great. Well, Mike, I know I speak for many in the audience when I say I could listen to you all day. You really have a comprehensive view of and expertise in these and so many more matters. I really appreciate you taking the time this evening to talk with our Catamount families. Families, there were a couple of questions about whether we would be able to share this presentation and the questions, and so we're going to put ourselves to that task next and figure out how we can best distribute this information to you following this evening. It'll take at least a couple of days to get the captioning, but we will make every effort to put this information forward so that you can review it. And we will be talking to you more in different ways about our campus, the health, the well-being, the belonging, and of course, the safety of our campus community. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us this evening. Thank you very much for the work you do to support your student and from where you are to help to keep them safe, engaged, and feeling safe and aware in our community. Hope you have a good
And
evening. Thank you very much.